In the last video, we talked about the danger of not really owning your sin, of only just generally confessing your sin in worship. Maybe we could talk about the danger of not truly believing that you're forgiven. That after you confess, when you hear someone's words, you're forgiven, to doubt whether or not. Whether maybe it's just moments later or hours later or days later when you keep coming back to that sin. And you think, and your guilt is overwhelming and your conscience bothers you and you feel like, how could I be forgiven? So I want you to talk about why is it dangerous for someone to believe their sin could never be forgiven? As you think about that, I want to give you two thoughts. I'm going to read to you from Matthew 27, 4-5, and then give you this thought about guilt. Matthew 27, I have sinned by betraying innocent blood, Judas said. His response that he got from the Pharisees and the religious leaders after he betrayed Jesus, betrayed innocent blood, he said, what is that to us? You bear the responsibility. And so look at this. Judas threw the silver that he received for betraying Jesus, threw it back into the temple, and he left. Then he went away and hanged himself. Notice two things which completely assaults this beautiful gift of confession and absolution God gave to the church. Judas makes confession. Judas was sorrowful for betraying Jesus. But inside, he didn't truly believe he could be forgiven. And that's worldly sorrow. That's not godly sorrow. Godly sorrow worked in the heart. Yes, when you confess your sin, you trust that you can be forgiven. And what happened as a result? Judas fell into despair beyond recovery, and he actually took his life. Now, here's where the church, the visible false church of the day, so not the church that God created, really sinned against Judas and sinned against God. Their response should have been, Judas, you're forgiven. Of course, these are the same ones who are crucifying, or at least intending and planning on, within 24 hours, having Jesus crucified. So instead of confession and absolution, they heard a confession which was overwhelming with despair, and they gave judgment. They simply said, well, that's your problem, Judas. And the church condemned. And as a result, again, Judas could not be encouraged to be forgiven or to believe that he could be forgiven. These things play out so often in the church if we're not careful. And that's why it's important, right? Regularly to go back to Luther's explanation here. Even more so, Luther's explanation, which was found in the scriptures, to go back to the scriptures and to see this gift. We are to confess our sins with hope. And from the church, we're to hear you're forgiven no matter the sin. Confession and absolution, not just in the church, but in everyday life, especially in families, fathers and mothers, causing their children to have an opportunity to confess their sins, to give them power and strength to do that, and to forgive them right away, no matter the consequences which might follow. All right, one more video to just wrap up our discussion on confession and absolution. Hopefully, again, we see what a treasure this is, and may we always be able to use it in the right way. Let's carry on in the next video as you see fit.